Hi, this is Kirk, the bariatric carnivore. Now here's a condition you do not want. Sarcobesity, the combination of muscle wasting and obesity. One of the sad facts of the world is, generally speaking, on average, the average person loses about 1% of their muscle mass every year after the age of 30. You may be in that group. I noticed when I turned 50 that I had lost somewhere about 20% of my muscle mass, on average. I don't know what that percentage was, but I know that I wasn't as strong as I was when I was 30, and that I couldn't move, and there were certain things I couldn't do anymore, and that was troubling. Now, to make matters worse is I was fat at 50. I had done a DEXA scan sometime in my late 40s, and it was an embarrassing 53% body fat, which meant I was a piece of bacon for all practical purposes. And when I looked at that study again, I realized that I had a lot of visceral fat, which means fat that was on my organs. I had fatty liver, I had fat around my kidneys, I had fat around my everything. So the body was looking for lots of places to store fat. I had it, and that contributes to declining metabolic health. That's one of the reasons why I was becoming a type 2 diabetic and starting to lose my vision and was facing the prospect of macular degeneration. So all these things added together going into 50s, and it was a problem. And that brings us to the good news. The good news is it looks like it might be reversed. There's a small Italian pilot study. Now, is this something you can hang your hat on? Is this something that you can show all your friends and say, look, here's proof that keto works? No, it's a pilot study, which meant it was done on a very small group of people. But it is, until somebody does a bigger one, this is really a great indication of the power of a low-carb diet. What they did was they took a bunch of 50 to 70-year-olds, all of them either type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic, and in horrible shape. All of them were fat. And, it's kind of what you see at the beach. When you see older people with big bellies, skinny legs and arms. That's what happens when you have visceral fat. You have no muscle mass, and you got a big belly. That means all that muscle, all that fat is being stored on your vital organs. And they broke them down into two groups. They both were on low calorie diets. But one was on a low carb, low calorie diet. And this is what was interesting about it. I would have suspected, they also gave them an exercise program, basic exercise routine, basic calisthenics, sitting up, standing, getting in and out of their chair, that type of stuff. Nothing Jack LaLanne type, just basic calisthenics. And they all were supposed to do that a few times a day. They had, they both had the same amount of protein. Everything else was kept constant. They're both getting the same number of calories, just one was eating the low-carb diet. And you compare these two groups, and what was interesting about it was I would have predicted both of them were going to lose weight because they're eating, fewer calories. But I suspected both of them were going to lose muscle mass. That wasn't true. The people on the ketogenic diet, the low-carb diet, gained muscle mass. And then, it was a 6-week trial, which isn't a huge amount of time, but it did make sense to me when I looked at it this way. The first place you lose fat on a low-carb diet is your liver. And then you seem to lose, from what I can tell from all the different studies that I've looked at, then you start losing fat on the organs. The body gives that up first, which makes you more metabolically healthy, which is often why we see people getting such great improvements in their overall metabolic health early when they switch to a low-carb diet, because the body gives up that adipose, the fat around the abdomen first, around the organs, liver fat, etc. And that improvement in metabolic health helps get the rest of the body jump-started. So the combination of the exercise, the low carb approach led to increase in muscle mass. Now, we don't know with this particular study how much protein these people were getting before they started the program, but we just know that they were in bad health. And it's a great, hopefully, motivator to many of you guys to go ahead and switch approaches. And in this day and age of Ozempic and bariatric surgery, I really recommend you look at this study and consider going low carb to go along with using, if you're going to utilize something like Ozempic or bariatric surgery, also incorporate a low carb approach. Because what I've noticed with so many people, and this goes back to my days with fen-phen, when back in the 90s, that was all the craze, the combination of two drugs, and I lost weight. I mean, I lost 60 pounds taking that combination of drugs, and I felt great, but FDA found out that that drug also caused a lot of heart problems, so they banned it. And when they banned the drug, within a few years, I gained the weight back. And because I hadn't changed my diet, and because I wasn't putting on muscle during that time, I was just gaining new fat. And that's a really dangerous combination. You're going to see a bunch of people when, eventually the Ozempic craze dies, or people that at 5 years or so after bariatric surgery, they start to regain their weight. The problem with that is they've often lost muscle tissue, their lean mass, as well as the fat. And if you don't have lean tissue, you're not going to be able to fight the increased weight gain, and so you end up in the worst of all possible worlds, weaker and fatter. And that is a very dangerous combination going into old age. There was an interesting study done recently, you may have seen it in the news, where they looked at older people who lost weight, and they noticed that losing weight at an older age puts you at a greater risk of dying. Now, again, it's one of those studies that I really wish I could know more data on it. Because what happens with a lot of these studies is they use what's called NHANES data. They look at data sets and they say, okay, here's people that went to the doctor at this point and they lost weight, and oh my gosh, these people died. But you don't know anything really about what they were eating. Did they have a disease? Did they suddenly become heroin addicts? Why did they lose the weight? Or did they lose muscle mass, or did they lose fat? Because when you look at that study, you would say that I've got a big target on me, because I lost all this weight in my 50s and I should die earlier, but I also gained muscle mass. I mean, I had another DEXA scan while I was down at KetoCon this year, and found out that I'm now down to about 17% body fat. So for my age, that was excellent. I mean, that puts me in the upper 2 to 5% of all males that are 60. So I'm not worried about, basically I've gained muscle mass and lost fat. I think that's the healthiest combination. Every study I've seen, and I don't, even the biggest vegan advocate out there shouldn't argue on this one. If you want to age well, you want to have as much muscle as you possibly can and as much strength as you possibly can. And we've got other videos that deal with how to measure how strong you are. And your muscle mass is stuff that, is difficult to determine, but if you want to get a DEXA scan, you can do that, figure out what your body composition is. But basically, you want to be showing signs. If you got visible signs of having muscle, and the more muscle you've got and the greater your strength is, the better chance you're going to have to age well. That's my goal. So hopefully that's yours, and hopefully this might give you a little, I can't hang my hat on it. I can't say 100% that if you want to live longer, you're going to eat low carb. But I think this is another good indicator as to why a combination of exercise as well as a low carb diet, It's going to help you lose weight and maintain muscle mass. And until proven otherwise, I think that's something that you might want to consider. So take a look at the study if you want. Keep looking at the evidence. Look, nobody, your doctor, the hospital, the food, the government, nobody's going to tell you how to get healthy. In this fight for your body and you getting healthy, you're all alone. You got to figure it out for yourself. Well, thankfully with this channel and the help of the community, we're all alone in this, but we're all alone in this together, and we keep learning and we keep finding new studies that will hopefully improve all of our health. That's the goal. If you like that idea, if you want to be part of this community, please hit the like, subscribe button, and I will see you tomorrow.